Managing Director of Tourism Australia, Andrew McEvoy.
Look, I want to talk a bit today about why Oprah. Why did Tourism Australia go and approach Harpo Productions to bring her an audience to Australia? What was the rationale behind it? Because it was more than just a big stunt. It had a lot of thinking going into it before we even made the approach. And I want to also talk about the tourism and travel industry because it's beyond Oprah. This industry, which maybe you will or won't know, is a very big industry for Australia. It represents about $94 billion in spending in the Australian economy. About 26 billion of that is international visitors coming and spending their money, so export dollars. It employs 500,000 Australians directly and probably another 500,000 indirectly. But it's had a tough decade. Since the Olympics, and everyone can tell you all the shock and the awe, constant shock was a term that was coined by Qantas. There's been a lot of stuff happen. But I also think that Australia has lost its market share globally, had lost its mojo a bit, and needs to step up and demonstrate what is one of the most beautiful and wondrous countries in the most powerful ways possible now and into the future to get that mojo back. And Oprah was a part of that. So last year, Tourism Australia, apart from bringing Oprah out, set some ambition for the industry. It's called the 2020 Tourism Industry Potential, and it's about how do we double the value of the tourism and travel industry. The other thing we did last year is we set up a new campaign, a campaign that will be our line and our strategy for at least the next decade. One of the things that you've got to know in our industry is that perceptions of consumers are very difficult to change. You need to start with a concept and a strategy and go at it for more than a decade plus before people really start to notice. Last year we launched a campaign, There's Nothing Like Australia. Why? Two main reasons. One, the world travels to experience difference. So the line, There's Nothing Like Australia, is really a strategy and a line. How does Tourism Australia and the Australian industry accentuate what's different, interesting, fashionable, sexy, compelling, and worth visiting about our country, not just this year, but for every year, for the next decade, for the next 20 years. So There's Nothing Like Australia, you'll find, will be our campaign line and our strategy for at least the next decade, and that'll be important for us. Currently, overnight travel to and within Australia is worth $70 billion, and the ambition is to see it grow to what the forecast suggests will be a $115 billion industry by 2020, or what we think we could achieve through stretch goals of $140 billion, a doubling of value. Ultimately, 50% of all our dollars will come from international visitors and 50% from Australians. So we're really working hard on accentuating inbound tourism. And you can see on the left-hand side in that sort of table that China has somewhere between $4 and $6 billion of additional growth. Currently, China's worth $3.2 billion in spending for Australia, but in the next decade, it'll get to somewhere around $9 billion or more. Let's have a look at the campaign, There's Nothing Like Australia. We start with all campaigns, the manifestation is often an ad, and an ad, I reckon, is a great way to launch the campaign, seed the line and get people thinking, is there really nothing like Australia? Let's have a look at the ad.
There's nothing like it, is there? No.
There's nothing like the sunrise, that first wave of the day.
The trip along the coastline.
It's right across the bay.
There's nothing like this ancient place.
The sunset from a camel.
This organism.
This beautiful. Oh, this dark-billed mammal.
Da, 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 da.
That ad gets played a lot. We do use it all around the world. It gets tagged by a lot of our partners. And I've got to say, consumers love it. I think the numbers, Kim, 94% of Chinese go, my God, I just want to go there. And 91% of Chinese actually do something about it after they've seen it. They go online, they talk to their travel agent, they speak to their mates who've been. So it does work around the world, but it'll probably be downloaded more than we'll be able to show it to audiences over time. And I guess the campaign is always more than a 60-second ad that you show at the launch, and you do demonstrate around the world. So we've taken the idea, There's Nothing Like Australia, we've demonstrated it through all channels, and we're very open to advocacy, getting other people to tell our story. The power of Oprah. Why did we do Oprah? How did it start? People think it's just a big stunt on its own. It came out of the line, There's Nothing Like Australia. I challenged our team, how do you prove that? How do you prove that through advocacy in the most powerful way? Well, the most powerful advocate in the world is Oprah Winfrey. She has an audience that connect to her. Really importantly, that audience is 25 to 54-year-old women who have above average incomes, 90,000 US plus in the USA. They might not watch it during the day, but they TiVo and watch it at night. When she recommends a book, they buy the book. When she says Kindle's good, they get one. They also look at her for travel decisions, for fashion decisions. And if they're not watching her show, they're in her Oprah.com or reading a magazine. So that audience are the travel decision makers. 25 to 54-year-old women index massively more highly than anyone else in terms of globally making a travel decision, telling their partner, their husband, their kids where they're going to be going on a holiday. So that was our audience. And so it wasn't just because Oprah's powerful and a big advocate and would get a lot of publicity. She spoke to the audience we were trying to speak to much more powerfully than us. That was the decision. You can see a timeline there. Oprah says a year. I think that's good for television. We weren't talking for quite that long. Look, the fact was Tourism Australia had been talking to Harpo Productions for about 8 years in a whole bunch of ways. A lot of people had gone to Oprah and Harpo with, come to my destination, do this, do that. What we said in February last year was, if we're going to do it, let's go big. She'd done the Pontiac car giveaway. Now that was massive, and we said if we're going to do it, we have to really commit. And so it was all about getting the entire audience to come down under, and we needed partners to do that. So you can see the timelines. Originally, when we got her to commit to the show in about June, we were going to be an episode in about November, so halfway through the series. She thought the idea was so powerful and so big, she made it the opening episode, which was fantastic for us. Originally, we were going to do 2 shows with Oprah on the steps of the Opera House. It became so powerful, there were so many stories, we did 4 hours. She also did 2 hours of behind the scenes, which is run on our Oprah Winfrey network. And then a lot of media obviously covered it. So it was a really powerful story. And working with Harpo was iterative. You went in with one idea, and that idea got exploded out again and again. And by being nimble and fleet-footed and willing to change, and we changed a lot, we got a hell of a lot more out of it. We watched other people work with Harpo who were really rigid in, my contract says this, and they didn't get as much. And I think that's one of the big messages. If you're going to do something like this, go big, commit, and also work with them. You know, they know their audience better than you ever will. Back them. You know, we know our country, they know our audience. Together, that's the perfect match. But it takes a village. It wasn't just us. Early on, we needed some basic plans. We needed Qantas, and they were fantastic. Not sure if anyone from Qantas is here, but Alan Joyce got very personally involved. The fact that John Travolta is their ambassador and also one of Oprah's best mates was a bit of an advantage, I've got to say. You know the results, 170 minutes of airtime, 4 shows aired live in the US into 145 countries around the world. A viewing audience in America alone of 40 million people a week, and in the world of 70 million people. But beyond that, Oprah.com, O Magazine, the amount of publicity generated around the show was amazing. You know, I couldn't believe, the big bit that I was surprised about was how powerfully the Australian media grabbed a hold of it and how much Australians got into it. And we had examples where Hamilton Island, after she'd been there, their phone rang off the hook from Australians making holiday bookings. Quite amazing. 74% of people who saw the show thought Australia was worth travelling to. And the most important thing, 61% of the people who've seen the shows are now actively researching, planning and booking holidays. Replicom did a number, 3.3% of Americans say they've already booked. Now, if you extrapolate that down, that's 140,000 Americans who say they've actually already booked. Oprah was part of a bigger idea, and an idea that will last for a decade or more. There's nothing like Australia. You will see that Tourism Australia and our partners, that village, will do more big ideas, and we're interested in your big ideas. We are interested in innovation, but innovation that reaches our audience. The big thing with Oprah, 25 to 54-year-old women, above average income, who make travel decisions. Without that audience, it would have just been a great big idea that would not have resonated. So that was really, really important. Advocacy is the key. She was the self-confessed biggest mouth in the world, and that was pretty handy. There are no other Oprahs exactly like her, but there are other people with massive advocacy roles that we want them to play on behalf of Australia. I think it defined the word collaboration. You know, we are not an island, Australia is, but collectively we can be quite powerful if we want to work together. And as I said, if we want to go big, go hard, fully commit, and actually be collaborative and iterative. Things will change, but grab a hold of the new opportunity as it arises. By being flexible and iterative, interactive, wrong word, we got more value, and the benefits will be long term. 61% of Americans and Canadians and the other people around the world are now actively researching Australia. The economy in the US is not great at the moment. They're still struggling out of the economy, out of their GFC. But there's a lot of pent-up demand. When things get better, you watch all the people who saw Oprah demonstrate Australia through her powerful advocacy start to book holidays in Australia. Thanks very much for listening.